In a few short years, you helped turn a small fried chicken joint into a franchise juggernaut. You went from 2 locations to about 50, and I know you have hundreds of more in the pipeline globally. How did you do that?
Josh Halpern, CEO of Big Chicken. We had 140 franchise applications, and I was like, hate to be a jerk, but I've turned down 6,000 in the last 3 years. They're like, how? Right? But we said, look, at the end of the day, people will be wrapped around the building the day we open a new restaurant because of Shaquille. He is not a repeat mechanism at all, right? No one is going to say, hey, I really don't like the food and I really don't like the service, but I just love Shaq so much I'll come back every week.
One hard truth about scaling a brand that people might not want to face. What would it be?
What works for you at 2 units won't work for you at 20, and what works for you at 20 won't work for you at 200. So you have to have continuous improvement mindset. You need to make sure like vendors even know, hey, you're with me right now, but there's a point in time you're not going to be, because you're going to be wrong for the chapter in the story.
I also came across your concept of 4 wins every day in every restaurant.
And I tell potential franchisees or license deals or suppliers this.
Josh Halpern, welcome to the show. Glad to have you. I want to start out with, well, let me rewind a little bit. You've done something pretty extraordinary with Big Chicken, which is in a few short years, you helped turn a small fried chicken joint into a franchise juggernaut. You went from 2 locations to about 50, and I know you have hundreds of more in the pipeline globally, but you did it, and this is the kind of the important part, when a lot of restaurant brands were struggling to scale and or were just relying on VC money. So I wanted to start with how did you do that? How did you build Big Chicken into this fast casual phenom so quickly? What's been your playbook for rapid growth? I know you often say brand building starts with your P&L, not your logo. So could you explain that philosophy in action? How did focusing on the business fundamentals guide your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, first off, our growth, I don't know if it was me turning it into a juggernaut. I wouldn't describe us as a juggernaut per se, especially since we were roughly the same size as Dave's Hot Chicken, and they really, really ignited. But we did absolutely get rapid growth, right? And that rapid growth was a good thing and a bad thing, but all of it came because of my partner in crime, Shaquille O'Neal, right?
Right.
The number of franchise applications. I had someone say to me recently, oh, we had a great year last year. We had 140 franchise applications. And I was like, hate to be a jerk, but I've turned down 6,000 in the last 3 years. And they're like, how? Right? And it's because people are like, yo, Shaq, I want to open up a fried chicken joint.
Yeah.
Right? Sort of a weird dynamic, right? So because of Shaq, I joke a lot with him. I have 99 problems no one else has because of Shaq.
Right.
I also get 99 things done for me that no one else gets because of Shaq. And the way that we grow is in both sides of that equation. It's our biggest strength and our biggest threat is how we grow. But we made the determination up front, and maybe we were spoiled a little bit because, Shaquille is in the business every day. But we said, look, at the end of the day, Shaquille is the best child mechanism on earth. People will be wrapped around the building the day we open a new restaurant because of Shaquille. He is not a repeat mechanism at all, right? No one is going to say, hey, I really don't like the food and I really don't like the service, but I just love Shaq so much I'll come back every week.
That's right. You got a one and done on that one.
Yeah, exactly. So we recognized quality matters, and so do our unit level economics. And unit level economics, especially in this day and age, are really hard, right? Labor costs keep going up, food costs keep going up. But we said we're going to just fight for continuous improvement every month, every quarter. We're never going to be satisfied with where we are on the cost side. And as long as our quality holds as we do that value engineering, we'll continue growing. And that's been ultimately the play in the United States and now starting around the world.
That's good. We're going to unpack then 2 things there because we'll go separate things. And let's kind of get the elephant, as it were, in the room out of the way there because you teased it. As someone from the LA area and a diehard Lakers fan, I am keenly aware of one of my favorite basketball players of all time's involvement in your brand, Shaquille O'Neal, as you've mentioned. So let's talk about that first, because the people who are listening to this show are anything from, just independent restaurant operators all the way up through people who work for giant enterprise, restaurant brands that have thousands of stores and lots of franchise relationships. And so I think there's a lot of the business side that people will want to dive into. But you're right. Not many people have the luxury of having the diesel involved in their day-to-day business operations. Like let's dive into that part first. Just get that out of the way. You've mentioned, Big Chicken is a thriving brand. I appreciate your humility there, but you are still growing and still have a ton of interest in your business and something that you've really helped build from the ground up. And like you said, Shaq is one piece that gets you trials, but it doesn't get you necessarily repeat business. But talk about Shaq. He's not just a figurehead. He's truly involved in this business and passionate about it. So can you pull back the curtain on what it's like to have Shaq as a partner? Maybe share a story that captures his involvement in the brand?
Yeah, he's just a pain in my ass, man. No, I'm just kidding. I love Shaquille so much. He really is the guy you see on TV, and that authenticity comes out a lot, which is so key, I think. He has a deep love of fried chicken, and it started with his mom, Lucille, who used to make a lot of fried chicken and whip up sides. And for Shaquille, his childhood was sitting around that dinner table, doing homework, laughing, telling stories with some chicken, whether it was fried or barbecued, and a couple sides. So for him, chicken is very personal. For him, this brand is very personal. He's tried our breading before the breading ever touched a chicken to make sure it resonated with Lucille's. He's tried every
Mm.
major innovation we've done, everything. But he is funny, right? Like
Yeah.
early on in the brand, we had a banana pudding ice cream sandwich. So it was like banana ice cream with like two very large like Nilla wafer kind of cookies on the sandwich, and he's like, no, no. I'm like, "What do you mean, no?" I'm like, "You love banana pudding." He goes, "That's right, I love banana pudding." I'm like,
This
"And
is
you love
not
ice
banana
cream." He goes,
pudding.
"Yeah, bro, I love ice cream." So if you love banana pudding and you love ice cream, like, I don't understand, right? And he's like, "Those 2 things don't go together, brother. They don't go together," you know? And you're like, "Ugh," right? So, I mean, but I will tell you, he's the first one to say, if people love it, it's not all about him. He doesn't love spicy, but he recognizes there needs to be spicy. And then sometimes we get thrown a fun curveball. We have a sandwich on our menu called the Ultimate. It used to be called the Charles Barkley because one day Chuck made him mad on set and he came off set and said, "I want a sandwich big and sloppy like that." Word I can't say on a
Yeah.
podcast. And we came up with this crazy sandwich with onion rings and mac and cheese and all this stuff on it, and we were going to call it the Barles Charkley. And Shaquille presented it to him on TNT, and Chuck was like, "Man, if you're going to do this, you got to use my name." Gave us permission on the air,
That's so great.
and it carried for a couple of years until they forgot to disclose it when Charles did his Subway deal. We had to change the name of the sandwich. Weird things that can only happen in a Shaq-owned brand, you know?
Yeah. All the people who are listening who are trying to find a relevant, piece of this for their business are gonna throw that one out the window. But that's a great story.
I worked for Fortune 100 brands before I did this. Like, I like to joke, most guys, their midlife crisis is like a mistress or a sports car. My midlife crisis is Shaq and fried chicken sandwiches, right? And I worked for Fortune 100 companies like Procter and Gamble and Clorox and Anheuser-Busch. I don't have stories like that Charles Barkley story from those days where we had massively large budgets. Shaq is one of a kind. I love the man.
That's awesome. I love it. And I love him too. And Shaq, if you're listening, I'm a big fan. Thank you for those championships.
Birthday brother, right?
Yeah.
This is airing March 4th. His birthday is March 6th. We give out actually free ice cream cones to everyone that walks in on his birthday. And we normally have oversized birthday cards so people could send a little love note to Shaq. But yeah, his birthday's this week. Super excited for him.
That's all. Yeah, so great. Such a fun story. You mentioned, your career. Let's touch on that a little bit because I think it's really interesting to hear your journey. You mentioned a lot of Fortune 100 brands that you work with, Procter and Gamble, Clorox, working with Anheuser-Busch. How do you feel? Because those are a little bit less conventional of a path to get to be a restaurant CEO than others in the industry. How have you found that the cross industry background that you have shapes the way you approach the restaurant business?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the people that grow up in restaurants, they have an operational mindset that I will never have, and I don't pretend to have it, right? But the folks that came from CPG, and there's now quite a few restaurant CEOs that started their career in CPG. I didn't know them when I was there, but Kevin Hochman was at Procter and Gamble. He's CEO of Chili's. He was at
Mhm.
P&G when I was there. Brian Nichol, the CEO of Starbucks, he was at P&G when I was there. They were in marketing. I was in the sales function there. Kevin and I actually knew each other at Anheuser-Busch a little later on. What we bring is more of a business mindset, right? So when it comes to procurement, for instance, we're really dialed in. When it comes to understanding the shopper versus the consumer, we're really dialed in. And the restaurant industry really isn't, right? The shopper is who you are when the credit card hits the portal or you press send on your DoorDash order. The consumer is who you are with the sandwich in your hand. And those are very different people at times, right?
Oh, that's a great
Um,
insight.
you know, CPG, anyone that came out of consumer packaged goods, we were raised on that. In the restaurant industry, it's still very, very much about the guest, not about the shopper. And it's why so many restaurant loyalty programs are a little rough because you're speaking to the person who has the sandwich in their hand, not to the person whose credit card is going to tap the terminal, right? So I think people with my background bring a lot into the industry. We don't bring everything. People with restaurant operations, the same. It's kind of like for you to become a head coach in the National Football League, you either grew up in the offense or the defense. Very few people are great at both sides of the ball. The question is, do you understand both sides of the ball? And are you willing to promote your strength and then hire to help you accomplish the other side, right? And that's really where we merged Big Chicken a year ago into Crave-worthy brands. I'm Greg Majewski's chief business officer. He's one of the best operators I've ever met. I mean, he can run circles around anyone I've ever seen inside of a restaurant. He can find things in a restaurant that I wouldn't even think about. But there's other elements of the business that I own, and it's why we make a really great team.
I love that. And we're gonna jump into Craveworthy in
Yeah.
a sec, but I love that insight that you just put out there, the difference between the shopper and the consumer, as you put it. Can you give me another example, a more tangible example of when just maybe a decision you made, maybe a situation you ran into in your brands where those two things kind of came to a head?
I'm going to give you one from outside. It was when I realized the disconnect was actually at home with my family, right? And I won't say which brand because the CEO of this brand, I've told this story a few times, and the CEO of the brand literally begged me to no longer bring up the brand, right? But in my town, just outside New York City, there's 4 fast casual burger brands, right? And my family only eats at one of them, only one of them, right?
Okay.
And the reason is not because it's the best burger, it's not because it's the best bun or the best fries. It's because my oldest son, the most popular kid in his grade, the star athlete, said 4 years ago, this is the burger joint that he eats at. And now the entire grade, that is the burger joint that the entire grade eats at. And the burger's good, right? It's not like it's crap or anything like that. But literally, we all eat at the same burger joint because of this random kid, right, from my son's grade. And it's good menu, right? Um, I ate there 18 times in the last 52 weeks, something like that, right? And
Okay.
recently, I got served a piece of loyalty email, and the communication was basically like, "Hey, you never come in here for lunch during the week. If you come in for lunch during the week, you can get a milkshake for free. Monday to Friday, excluding holidays, 11 to 2."
Yeah.
I've never once eaten at this burger place without my kids. I would never eat at this burger place without my kids. Right? This is a family, like we're running from hockey or basketball or whatever. You pick up burgers, fries, etc.
Right.
Right? But their insights did not see, okay, a 14-year-old kid made this decision because of some popularity dynamic in the high school. They read it as a man in his late 40s comes here a lot, but for some reason doesn't come here by himself in the middle of the day.
Right.
Let's try to get him here by himself in the middle of the day. And that means they don't really understand me. And that's scary for someone that's been there 18 times in the last year, right?
Right.
That's what we try to break, right? So, I mean, we look at Big Chicken at family promotions. We've done things where, last day of school, we've given achievement certificates where it's not come in and have a free combo. It's, hey, you kicked butt this year. You just had a great school year. If you and your family come in a Big Chicken, we'll give you a free milkshake, right? Now they're begging their parents to go in. Parents are saying, man, we could try this chain that we wanted to try for cheaper. All of those things start to play in, but you have to have a strategy on how to touch the consumer and the shopper. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Man, that's so good. I've absolutely experienced the same thing, especially as a parent of, boys and youth sports. There are places
Yeah.
that I only go because it has something to do it's just like an easy place to pick up something after a game or something else.
And the best part about it is like, Andy, what percentage of the time when you're with your family are you the one that gets to choose which fast casual or QSR restaurant you're going to that day?
Oh, yeah, not often. I am not the primary driver of that because I'm like, "What are you going to eat?" You know, 10-year-old son of mine.
And you have to like seat it for a while. You have to be like driving. You're like, we haven't hit Panda Express in a while.
Yeah.
You know, you do
Yeah,
that like 4 or 5 times. Maybe the kid's like, hey, we should do Panda Express. And you're like, all right, I'm counting it. I got
yeah.
this one.
It's just Inception, but, like,
Yeah,
with a child.
that's right. That's basically fatherhood in a nutshell, is that right?
100%. I completely relate. That's great. So, okay, you mentioned kind of discounting, understanding the guest, and I think that when you're a franchisor, managing this business, kind of almost a little bit on behalf of franchisees who are using their hard-earned money to buy into your business. There's a bit of there's a bit of like, oh, I need to really watch what I'm putting in front of these franchisees and make sure that they're successful. And you've emphasized a maniacal focus on franchisees' unit level economics. In fact, you've avoided deep discounting promotions because they could hurt franchisee margins, which is something I feel like, especially if you are either a franchisee of a brand listening or you're someone who works for you're someone who works for a franchisor. These are constant tensions you experience, right? We want to give this big promotion, but the franchisees are like, you're basically spending my money that I'm not necessarily sure I'm cool with. What are some concrete ways that you ensure your franchisees are winning here? For instance, how do you support franchisees keeping food and labor costs in check or driving sales locally? What do you provide them with data insights and tools? What's your kind of relationship and what does that, physically look like at Big Chicken?
I mean, like anything, there's franchisees your relationship's stronger. There's franchisees where it's less strong. There's franchisees that will listen more to you. There's franchisees that won't. That's the nature of the game.
Mhm.
It's not our job to ensure that franchisees are successful. It's our job to maximize the probability of their success. So, are we giving them the right resources? Are we getting contracted pricing on ingredients where we know that at theoretical food cost with a dispersion for actual that they're going to be okay? Are we giving them a labor matrix that they can follow, where if they're following the labor matrix, they should be okay? We've had franchisees say, look, I like to have more bodies in the restaurant, or I like to have less bodies in the restaurant, or, I give, we don't measure the fries the way you tell. Okay, like that's on you, right? I can't control everything you're doing. You're an independent business person. It's just always setting you up for success. And we are maniacal in that, we found like a 1.5 cent per straw betterment on a same quality straw last year. And that's the least sexy cost savings of all time. It's just what you think about the fact that you go through like 500 straws a day, right?
Right.
So that's, $10 a day, let's call it, times 365 days. And you're
It
like,
adds up.
that's a lot of money for not a very sexy business decision, right? So it's that's what it means to us. It's, are we leaving costs on the table? Are we being complacent? Or are we really trying to help our franchisees maximize their probability of success and not leave things to chance and really look at everything that we're doing? Do we have the right training software? And we use a company called Opus, which is phenomenal. where we're able to drop training modules 365 days a year, and it integrates into our guest feedback software. So if we see the same things over and over again, we're able to start training behind it. This time last year, or I guess 2 years ago now, for whatever reason, our franchisees in our corporate stores cannot figure out how to put sauce in the bag. And it would drive people like mentally insane that their side of ranch dressing or barbecue sauce wasn't in that bag. But
Mhm.
they're not coming back over you forgetting to put that ramekin into the bag. How do we fix that? And using those training tools really, really matters. It's really making sure you understand everything hitting you in your business and having a plan in place to mitigate. And you're never going to truly eliminate, right? You're always going to have the one bag where the ramekin isn't in the bag.
Yeah.
But if you had 10 defects a day and now you have 5, that's massive continuous improvement. That's Six Sigma thinking, right? And we really try to take all of the defects out of the process while working on procurement contracts that make sense, that minimize commodity cost volatility and help our franchisees out.
That's really good. I mean, you mentioned Six Sigma. I know you're very big into that. Green belt, not mistaken,
Green belt,
right?
yeah.
And I also came across your concept of 4 wins every day in every restaurant. The idea is that each day, the guest, the franchisee, the supplier, and the company should all get a win. And I thought that was interesting. I love these kind of little ones that we can bottle up and maybe it hits with somebody. Can you break down that mentality for us here? What might a win for each stakeholder look like on a given day at Big Chicken?
It's really simple. It's actually consumer packaged goods construct where you would have business planning meetings with Walmart and Target and Kroger, and it would literally be how do we win together, right? Um, Negotiations, and I tell potential franchisees or license deals or suppliers this. It has to stay for it to last any amount of time. It really needs to stay between the 40s, right? Like if you pull what too hard towards yourself, if they pull too hard towards themselves, maybe you're going to do a transaction, maybe you're not, but you're not going to have a relationship. You're not going to have a partnership. When you sign a franchising deal, it's normally a 10-year deal with an auto extend for 10 years. So that's 20 years,
Yeah.
right? Which means if you sign today, I will be retired by the time those 20 years run out. I'll be, almost 70 years old by the time those 20 years run out. So I'm signing up to be stuck with you for the rest of my career. We better enjoy working together,
Yeah.
right? Which means like I need to make sure that you're not losing at my expense, and quite honestly, you need to make sure that vice versa is not true as well, right? We have to partner together. So for the guest, they need the best quality product, the best service at the best price, right? And or the best value, I should say. People say the word price when they don't understand their value, but every one of us has one example of where you spend more money because the value is there for you, right? Like
Right.
odds are you're not going and picking up a gas station coffee in the morning. Odds are you're going to a Starbucks or a Seven Brew or something. It's way more money than the gas station cup of coffee, but there's a value in that for you.
Yeah. And I say it's worth it as the consumer with the credit card in my hand.
The big time. So it's do you have the right product, right service, right value? That's for the guest, right? For the franchisee, their unit level economics need to work. If their unit level economics don't work, they're not going to be with you for the next 20 years, and you're going to have a store closure and you're going to have a mess on your hands, and it's not going to be very good. For the supplier, I know what I'm about to say is sacrilegious, and you're a restaurant guy, so hopefully the tone of this doesn't change. They need to be able to take price increases from time to time,
Mhm.
right? But they also need to be able to show us alternatives and ways to mitigate that price increase, or at least have a proactive conversation in what that
Mhm.
looks like. Because at the end of the day, our system needs to win too. If we have a lot of guests who are happy with the system, franchisees relying on a successful system, suppliers relying on a successful system, the system needs to win too. So as long as everyone's working with the understanding, I need to make sure I'm winning, but the other constituents here are not losing. We can move forward, and that's what we all need to do together. We all need to move forward.
That's great. That's really helpful. And I think everyone listening can find some piece of that. I know there's a couple folks who work for suppliers who listen to this, and I know that, it is really hard right now, especially in the changing, tariff economy and the different costs that we have to manage, shifting sands there. It's hard business, and we appreciate supplier partners as well as appreciate. I think you made a good point. We have to work together to figure out how to do this, because the alternative is, if the supplier is just going to straight pass through everything right off the bat, well, something's gonna break. Someone's not gonna be able to take that, and then suddenly you lose that revenue strain because there is a closure of some kind.
And on food service, suppliers don't think the way they do on the retail side, right? So I had the coolest job on earth at one point. I ran every bar, restaurant, nightclub in America for Anheuser-Busch. I ran the on premise, right? So anywhere where you drink a beer on the premise reported to me at one point. And there was a very large restaurant chain that we worked with who has a lot of beers on tap, like a lot of beers on tap, right?
Right.
You probably in your mind be like, he's talking about this one, but I won't out the guy. And he calls me and he goes, "Hey, we have like, 100 beers on tap. We're gonna take Bud Light off." CEO of the chain. What do you mean you're gonna take Bud Light off? He goes, "We have all this beer. The beer is spoiling because Bud Light is still the number one drunk beer, in our chain." This was before the stuff that happened,
He's
right?
like, "I'm gonna take the number one drunk beer, and I'm gonna cut it off so that I force them to drink this other."
They're like, "Our guest comes here for variety," we're like, "But we're Bud Light. You can't do that." And I'm like, "All right, let me come see you," right? So came, met with the guy in his office. I said, "Hey, I'm going to hit like 4 of your restaurants tonight, and can we talk again tomorrow?" And he's like, "Sure." And we go to the 4 restaurants, and what I realized was there was no one in the restaurant ordering Bud Light first. Literally 0 people. There was 1 or 2 people that ordered Bud Light second, and then, 3rd round, people were either ordering a Bud Light or going home, right? Because the guy was coming in and crushing those 2 monster IPAs, but it's the 4th quarter of the Lakers game.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna have some, we're gonna go with a light beer instead of a 7%er."
Yeah, but also, like, do I wanna leave for the 4th quarter of the game? How long can I sit here with a water, So we were able to have conversation with the CEO, showed him the data, and was like, "Look, it's this simple. My role here is not to be beer 1 or 2. My role here is to be your 3rd beer. We need to be training the staff on, because the staff get paid on tips. You switch to water or you turn over the table, staff loses, and you need your staff to win, right? We need to train them to be like, 'Hey, Andy, you just crushed those 2 huge IPAs, brother. You want a 3rd one or maybe a Bud Light? What can I bring you
Yeah,
anything? What can I bring you?' And then you're sitting there going, 'I definitely can't do another IPA.
right. I don't want water. Something right in the middle.
I could do a Bud Light.' And, if you could sell that Bud Light 20 times a day at $6 per, 20% tip, it's an extra 25 bucks in your pocket. Can you do that? Right. So the supplier really needs to understand, what role do they play in your operation? Do they have a role in your operation?
Mm.
Right. Or not? I had someone when we started Big Chicken, they were like, "You should sell fish sticks too. We could sell you fish sticks." And I'm like, "Not our concept."
Yeah, we are a big chicken.
Yeah. They're like, "But we would love to be in a brand with Shaq." I get that. Not our concept. But if you understand the role that you play, then you could start pitching, "Hey, here's promotions that would make sense for you. Here's innovation that would make sense for you." And then everyone knows, hey, it's a little self-serving, right? Suppliers can have more products sell, but you're focused on me, my guest, my needs.
That's right.
And that's the 4 wins in a nutshell. How do we understand each other's pain? How do we understand what each other needs to succeed, make our bonus, all the things, so that we can all work together towards it?
I love that. You've talked about all this different experience, all of these different things coming together, and in terms of things coming together, not too long ago here, Big Chicken joined Crave-worthy Brands. I said we're going to kind of pivot to talk about Crave-worthy, and you moved into chief business officer in a role overseeing a portfolio of 19 concepts: chicken, burgers, coffee, taverns, all that kind of stuff. Why would you merge Big Chicken into a larger platform in the first place? Like, can you walk us through that strategic reasoning, and what does being part of a multi-brand group enable that standalone brand to do better that they might struggle with?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I'm just a little bit crazy if you can't tell. That's
Oh,
why
I
we.
love it. It's
Yeah.
the right kind of crazy.
But no, in all seriousness, I said it earlier. I get the business side of restaurants. I'm not an operations guy. With Shaquille, that 99 things done, 99 things given, growth being on both sides, we started growing like crazy everywhere. We have stores in Seattle, in New Jersey, in Boston, down south in Florida, right? And we recognize for us to be our best with our franchisees, we need to get way better operationally. We needed to have operational coverage. We needed to have people that understood the spatula was 6 inches too far to the left, right, and can move that model and everything else. That wasn't us, right? That wasn't me. So Greg Majewski was an advisor to the Big Chicken board. I brought him in the Big Chicken in 2023, and he ultimately said to the board, the only thing holding this brand back from truly being a juggernaut is operational superiority. And we made the decision it would be better to integrate into their system than for us to try to build their system ourselves. With a big group of people. The other thing is you want to be in every one of your franchise stores every 6 to 8 weeks. You can't do that if people are on planes flying back and forth to go hit one store, right?
Right.
So by joining the Craveworthy model with all of these brands, we have an ops director in New England who may be hitting 3 Big Chickens, 6 Gregory Coffee, et cetera, and so forth. We're able to focus on the operations of the store versus this notion of flying everywhere and all of these things. Restaurants are way more similar than different, right?
Yeah.
So, you want restaurants that are restaurant clean, where ticket time is right, where, supply chain ordering is right, where the theoretical to actual consumption is close, all those things. So we're able through our shared services model to really make that happen. But for me, it's been great because I get to focus on growth and I get to focus on process. And those are the two things that I know how to do really, really well. And the decisions that are made in the field, in the store, day in, day out, I don't have to worry about as much anymore. People who are experts in that area do. Going back to that offense, defense, football analogy.
Yeah, that's good. You definitely seem like someone who has a really good pulse on like team and culture, and I think it's a good call out to find your strengths, and if you have an opportunity to play more into those, and someone else can play into the areas that you're not as strong in because it's their strength. That's the ultimate win. You know, Talking about team and culture, there's a phrase I heard that you and your team use, which is love plus accountability, or love and accountability, to describe your culture. You've said that as a leader, you need to truly love your people, be present, be their biggest cheerleader, and also hold everyone accountable to high standards. Can you unpack that in practical terms? I thought that was really good because it's a really good tension that can drive excellence. But I'd love to hear, your thoughts on that.
It's funny. I was always known for building like very diverse teams, right? But through every company I ever came to, diverse, highly engaged teams. And someone said to me once, they're like, this construct that you build these diverse teams is so wrong. It's crazy. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah, okay, so unpack that for me.
And they're like, look, sure, your teams are gender diverse and racially diverse and sexually orientation diverse and all of these things. You hire the same freaking person every single time because you hire in a way where it's not about the demographics. You hire solely on psychographics. I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, for you, like if someone's not interested in being part of a broader team, they don't make your cut, right? If someone's not accountable to the team and can explain exactly what they're doing, they're not going to make the cut. If someone is afraid to say, I messed this up, my bad, but I'm the problem, I can fix it, they're not going to make the cut because the problem isn't admitting you're the problem. The problem is if you do nothing about it, right?
Right.
They're like, you somehow hire people that have this collective ethos. And I always thought that was interesting, this collective ethos. And it wasn't until I started working for Shaquille and I understood the reason why him and his team wanted me to come in is because he and I have a very similar ethos that this really began to take shape for me. And that ethos is we spend more time working than any other thing, right?
Mhm.
So you have to like truly, truly love what you're doing. Otherwise, what's the point? You have to love it. And I don't mean like, oh, I love the straw in my restaurant. I mean like,
Yeah.
oh, I have to like love the fact that I'm in the restaurant industry and I need to love the people that I'm around and doing this with. I have to feel, and it's amazing. I talk to people every single week that worked with me at past companies where we've stayed in touch over the years because we did something together. We left the Jersey in a better place. We established a legacy. We figured out the business tasks that we weren't supposed to figure out. I've led 8 business turnarounds in my career, 4 massive growth explosion moments. When you're in those moments together in the trench, those are the people that they're your ride and dies forever, right? You have to
Mhm.
love those people, right? Because you're not just pushing the pencil, you're trying to get some transformative result. And when you reach those victories, you're bound to these people forever. So you have to love all those people. You've got to love them, right?
Mhm.
The only way in business, though, to truly love is if you're accountable to the people around you and you know that they're accountable to you, right? Because the business will not achieve what the business is supposed to achieve if that accountability doesn't exist. It won't, right? If I tell you I'm going to have this accomplished by next Thursday and I get it done by next Thursday, great. He honored his commitment to us, right? If it
Right.
takes till Friday, Monday, okay. Like, you don't wanna make a regular habit of that, but still honored commitment. Took him a day longer. Give him the pass. Show him some grace.
Sometimes things happen.
Yeah, life happens, whatever. If I tell you that I'm gonna do something and more than 7 days go by from when I told you it would be done by, that's not me loving you. And are you gonna love me if you can't trust that it's gonna happen? No.
Yeah.
Right? So this construct of like, hey, we want to build a legacy together. We want at the end of our career to say this was the year that I look back on my career. This is one of the years that mattered the most in my career, right? And not just because of the results we got, but because of the people I did it with. That's love and accountability.
That's really good. I got a couple more questions. That's really good. I think I wanna go back to the customer. So you just have some really good insights on the customer. You've got a pulse check on what's going on there. I think it's really helpful for people, especially when you're running a restaurant, or even running a brand, continuing to keep that in mind. And one of the most notorious, and it's been like this for ages past, the customer that people always want to start to get are the younger customers. Whatever generation we're in, it's whatever that young customer that's coming up, brands start to think like, okay, how can I start to, be relevant to them? And you've noted that younger customers today see themselves as brands, which I thought was a really interesting, sentence to say. And, if a guest proudly says, I'm a big chicken person, then you have won because they've essentially made your brand their part of their identity. And that is a insanely high bar for loyalty. How are you trying to cultivate that type of fanatical loyalty with your guests? Walk us through your thinking around that because that's a different level than, oh, I really like that brand, but it's like I am a big chicken person.
Yeah, the thing that's so interesting about that question is if I laid out the playbook for you as to what we do, right?
Mhm.
I will never get another guest in again behind that playbook, right? Because now it would no longer be authentic. It would be contrived. It would be forced, right? What we've all forgotten since COVID in this industry, and it's really interesting. I went on a chat GPT recently. And it doesn't matter why, and it doesn't matter what prompted me to put this question in, but I literally said, if the hospitality industry had a Myers-Briggs profile, what would the Myers-Briggs profile be? And it said ENFP, which means extroverted, right? Nurturing, feeling and perceiving.
You have described my profile on the Myers Briggs.
ENFP. And then I put into Myers-Briggs, or in a chat GPT, what would be the hardest Myers-Briggs profile for AI to replicate? And the answer was ENFP.
Woo!
Okay. So just think about that for a second. We're all trying to get more digitally savvy. We're all trying to leverage these tech tools and loyalty apps and all of these things. And what we're ultimately doing in a way is losing the one thing that made us great, right? Which was this ENFP profile, right? Now, I'm not saying throw out restaurant tech. That would be insanity, right? Like, obviously, tech tools are here to stay for a really long time. Let the tool do the head side of the industry, right? The fulfillment side and all the many things, right? Um, we have got to get back to the heart of hospitality because if you type into Google loyalty, everything is about heart and love and interconnection. And when you add the word restaurant in front of the word loyalty, it's about sign up for an app, get free fries with sign up, get free wings with sign up, right? That's not art. If I have to pay you to hang out with me, that is called something very different, right? And illegal in
100%.
many sense, right? So it's we've got to get back to heart. We have to get back to that, right? If you want your kids to put their phones away, pick the most like boomer 60-plus-year-old restaurant chain and bring them there because they're not going to be out Instagramming and doing TikTok reels from there. They're not, right? Go to a place where the waitress has the cigarette in her mouth named Flo. The phone is away. That kid never wants anyone to know they were ever there. They're not willing to be geolocated there. The phone will be off in their pocket. It'll be great, right? But it is true. People under the age of 40, especially people under the age of 30, they see themselves as brands. That's why they create content. It's why they're super curated in what they put on their social channels, right? I'm a brand. You're a brand, right? Your podcast is a brand. People our age, though, don't think of ourselves as brands as much. But
Mhm.
because of that, we need to be super conscious of what are the brands that we want to have cross brand collaboration with. Think about Dave's Hot Chicken. And Jim Biddix is a personal friend. I envy the hell out of what they've done. They did an unbelievable job. They literally convinced thousands and thousands of people to post videos on social channels of them eating Dave's Hot Chicken inside their car. Think about that for a second, right? How do you get thousands and thousands of people to do that? You didn't offer them free chicken
Right.
if you did it, right? People were like, "Oh my god, that concept is on my brand. I need to be a part of that."
Yeah.
Right? And if I said, "Hey, I could totally do that. Hey, post from your car." People would be like, "Dude, what the hell, man? That's not you."
Yeah.
Right? So it's finding those things that get people truly excited about it. For us, our sandwiches are really big. There's toppings on these sandwiches that no one has ever seen. We have a sandwich with macaroni and cheese on top, one with cheese curds, all these ingredients. Mexican street corn is on one of our sandwiches.
Mm.
We get a lot of Instagram reels of people like showing the sandwich and showing these things like, "Oh my god, look at this crazy concoction I'm about to eat." We're constantly trying to find ways to talk to our consumer in a way that makes sense for their brand, but we can't force it. If you force it, you've already lost because the number one thing we all value in this day and age, I think, is authenticity and
Mm.
true human connection. Sorry, long-winded answer to a very simple question, but
No, it's great. That's what we're here for. And I'm even more happy to hear that my Myers Briggs personality is the least replaceable by AI. So it makes me feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy.
you're gonna have a job for a long time. I'm screwed, but you're gonna have a job for a long time.
Oh, that's good. Well, let's end it here. I want to kind of end on maybe more of a provocative question for you, especially given your experience. You've been in part of huge corporations. You've been part of hyper growth initiatives. You've been around startups, a bit of everything. And so with your, breadth of expertise here, if you had to pick one hard truth about scaling a brand that people might not want to face, what would it be?
I think it's what works for you at 2 units won't work for you at 20, and what works for you at 20 won't work for you at 200, right? So you have to have continuous improvement mindset. You can never be complacent. You need to make sure like vendors even know, "Hey, you're with me right now, but there's a point in time where you're not going to be because you're going to be wrong for the chapter in the story. Doesn't mean I don't love you. I do,
Mhm.
right? If I were to start another brand, I'd come right back to you, right? But I mean, that's the way we are. I am not a CEO that you would want to grow like industry plus a point. It's not what I do. I come in and fix big problems, or I go for explosive growth. If Big Chicken reaches a point where we're just, basically flat, growing a point
Right.
a year, same store sales plus 1.2%, I'm going to be the wrong guy to lead this ship, right? I'm going to have to get off of my own ship. Founders, in particular, the founders that end up having the explosively bad exits with the company that they started are normally the ones that stayed for too long, right?
Mhm.
Their logical chapter ended and they wanted to keep going, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with any of it. It's we're all in this journey. We're characters in a great big book. And not all characters are in every chapter of the book, and some characters go away in the middle of the book, come back later on in the book, right? Um, but that's the key one. If you're a 5-unit restaurant chain, your tech stack will not work for you at 500 units. It just won't.
Oh, I've seen that so often, it's wild.
And your supplier contracts won't work either. I remember when we started Big Chicken, the larger chicken companies didn't even really want to talk to us. We finally found one chicken company that was like, "We'll bet on you guys solely because you're Shaq." And then
Yeah.
2 years later, we had, 25 units open or whatnot, and all of a sudden the big guys started to call saying, "Hey, you're now starting to reach our perimeter and stuff," and we had to start talking to those companies. The partnership is an interesting thing. I'll never forget. I don't know if you know who Sally Smith is. She used to be CEO of Buffalo Wild Wings, and
Oh, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and when I took over Anheuser-Busch's on premise, our relationship between Buffalo Wild Wings and AB was good, not great, and it got really great over the next 2 years. And I asked her to come keynote our wholesaler convention, and she said something that really stuck with me. She said, the thing about partnership is it doesn't sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't, right? You're not always ready to be a good partner, and sometimes your partner's not always ready to be a good partner to you, right? And that's really it always stuck with me because it is the right truth. We're partners for now. That doesn't mean we're going to be partners for the next 50 years. And you may not be my partner now because one side just isn't ready quite yet for whatever
Right.
reason that looks like. But that is the toughest truth. The one thing that gives me consolation, though, in that truth is the fact that at the end of the day, take all the brands away, take all the results away, take all the sandwiches away. Our careers and our legacies are really defined by the people we do it with. And the number of people who have been with me on one stage of the journey, and then we stop working together, and then we come back to each other in time. One of the guys that used to work for me started his own company recently. He just asked me to advise him on the company because he's like, I just need to be able to tap into you for 15 minutes a week, right? Um, we are defined by the people we do this thing with, right? That is our long-lasting legacy, right? At your funeral, they're not gonna bring in Excel charts and PowerPoint presentations to show the audience what you achieved, right? Um, it's about this great network of people, these brands that we're building up with.
That's really good. Josh, I mean, incredible wisdom. I'd certainly benefit a lot just if it was just the two of us. And I know our listeners, I'm sure, did as well. If you could leave us, we do this with everyone. If you could leave us with three resources, whether it's three books that really mattered to you or three podcasts you routinely listen to, whatever it is, three resources that folks could take away that really helped shape kind of your journey and something you found really helpful. What would those be?
I'm gonna give you 3 books, because I love all 3 of these books. The first book, and it's the best book I ever read, it's like chicken soup for the business soul, is, called True North by Bill George.
Mhm.
Bill George was former CEO of Medtronics. He wrote a book profiling CEOs, that effective and a couple of them are restaurant CEOs that effectively they followed their compass and not their clock, right? So your clock is like, hey, I want to be a vice president by the time I'm 32, and I want to make X amount of money by the time I'm 35. I want to retire by this age. That's following your clock. The ones that follow their compass are the ones that are like, this is how I want people to feel around me, and this is how I want to lead those people, and this is how I want to, help the end user, the guest, whatever you want really, really powerful stuff. True North shaped me big time. And then the two other books I would give you, and they're written by people who, since they wrote the book, have become really close personal friends because I've sought them out. Founderology by Kathleen Wood is tremendous. Kathleen was one of Raising Cane's first CEOs. Um, Kathleen helps profile founders and why like founders are a different breed of people than like the business executives they hire. And I remember she handed me the book and she said, if you read it right now, it may or may not resonate, but someday you're going to need it. And one day I was really struggling with our co-founder at Big Chicken, and the book kind of like shining beacon, right? And I read the whole book cover to cover that afternoon, called her the next day. She gave me an hour of her time, and it completely rechanged or made me rethink how I was going to work with these founders to drive the way we needed to go. And then the third and final book, and there's now two of them, right? So technically I'm cheating giving four books, but Culture That Rocks and Engagement That Rocks by Jim Knight. Jim Knight was the guy who basically was the culture guru for
Mhm.
Hard Rock Cafe back in Hard Rock's glory days. And his construct on building a team and that we're all one big team in a restaurant, but we're all playing different instruments, right? Like the
Mhm.
person at the that seats you is different than your waiter is different than the busboy is different than the cooks in the back. But if they don't play together like one big band, you fail. I remember
Yep.
the first time I met Jim, he threw up the band U2 on a slide, and he's like, "Who's that guy?" And everyone's like, "Bono." And who's that guy? And like 90% of people are like, "Edge." Who are these other two guys? And everyone's like, "I don't know," you know. And he said, U2 so understands that the four of them need each other to win. That Bono can only be Bono if he has Adam Clayton and Larry and the other two, those other two guys, right?
Yeah.
And as a result, they completely profit share all the money that U2 makes. Bono and Edge don't make more than the other two guys, and all of these things because they understand we're one big band, and we really are one big band. So if you're trying to figure out how to drive that culture and that engagement in your restaurant without actually being prescribed, right? Just like the provocation of what you should be thinking about. Jim Knight's books are really incredible. So True North by Bill George, Founderology by Kathleen Wood, Culture That Rocks, and now Engagement That Rocks by Jim Knight. That would be my answer.
Josh Halpern, this was a masterclass in just wisdom of business leadership, especially in this industry that we're in. Man, I love this. Thank you so much for being here. It was really great having you, and I would love to keep this conversation going in the future for sure.
Let's do it. This was a lot of fun, but next time maybe beer or bourbon in hand.
Oh,
Yeah, Bud
I'm
Light is
there.
beer number 3.
Let's go. Yeah, Bud Light will be the third beer. That's right.
Perfect. I still think Bud Light would be huge today if it was Bud Light, the official beer of beer number 3.
I think that's so true because at some point you're like, man, still got about like probably an hour or so, or maybe a little bit longer till I have to get in the car, but I'm not gonna have another, Goose Island or something like that. Like I need something a little bubbly, a little carbonated.
It's like steer into the skid, right? The official beer of beer number 3, Bud Light.
That's great. Well, Josh, thank you, man. Thank you. This was really good.
Thank you.
Restaurant Reset is sponsored by Genius for Restaurants, the modern point-of-sale system from Global Payments. Genius helps you reach your most important goals, whether that's simplifying your operations, speeding up your checkouts and table turns, easily expanding into new locations, or building loyalty with guests. To find out more, visit globalpayments.com/genius.